The story kicks off with a shot of a redhead's back, sporting a sinister-looking fish tattoo. Right after, he shows up all battered, saying his life is over and he now belongs to the darkness. Then we find out this guy is the son of the BIO Corporation, and he's currently in a juvenile detention center. Inside the facility, one of the inmates is shocked by the news, thinking the whole situation is absurd, so he asks why someone with so much power would be locked up in there with them. A cellmate then starts to explain the reason, saying it all started with a fight. The guy gets even more confused, wanting to know what went down in this so-called fight. Turns out, whoever picked a fight with the redhead ended up in a really bad way, like a few guys who are left permanently injured. One of them even had to be rushed to the hospital because his organs were practically spilling out. The inmate is terrified by the brutality, and his cellmate confirms, yeah, he was beaten until that happened. Because of this and other incidents, our protagonist's reputation became pretty legendary around there. Nobody dares to mess with him anymore, which is why he was put in solitary confinement. Even though he's a terrifying dude, he's still the eldest son of the big boss at BIO. One of the prisoners calls him an idiot, but says he's not their problem at the moment, because right now, all the attention is focused on something else that's going down. Apparently, two new guys named Yuki Bok and Jo Young Peo are causing chaos. They're MMA fighters who came to Korea, stirred up some trouble, and ended up in jail. The first one is Yuki Bok, a blonde guy who looks like a real powerhouse in the ring, and the second is Jo Yang Pyo, a bald guy who doesn't exactly look like a saint either. The two of them made it far in a tournament when they were 18, but even that couldn't keep them out of trouble with the law. So, one of the inmates gets curious and asks what crime the duo committed. His cellmate replies that they brutally assaulted an 80-year-old woman. Everyone in the cell is disgusted, calling the two of them inhuman and total pieces of trash. To make things worse, the little old lady ended up passing away, and the only reason they're in juvie is because they're minors. The guy telling the story believes our protagonist, Hallyu, is already waiting to give them a warm welcome, because there's no way he's letting these guys get away with it, especially since the other people he beat up weren't nearly as awful. The other prisoners get scared just imagining what might happen to the newbies, but the prison's informant just smiles and says the battle actually started a long time ago, and everyone is buzzing with excitement for the fight between our boy Hallyu and the two MMA fighters. Meanwhile, outside the detention center, snow was falling endlessly on that cold night. A blue bus arrives, bringing the new prisoners through the prison gates. A moment later, the driver slams on the brakes, stopping the vehicle abruptly. One of the guards starts yelling for the passengers to get off the bus as quickly as possible. Just then, we see someone's feet step onto the snow-covered ground as they disembark. The camera stays focused on the person's feet as they finally exit the transport vehicle. Then we meet Yuki Bok, an 18-year-old blonde who stands at 6'1", and also Jo Young Pyo, a bald guy of the same age, standing at 6'3" and weighing 220 pounds. Both of them look seriously annoyed with the situation and just stand there, waiting for orders. A guard then approaches and tells the pair of fighters to follow him inside the building. From his solitary cell, a mysterious silhouette watches the arrival of the new inmates. And that silhouette belonged to a guy with red eyebrows, who was watching them from a distance. Meanwhile, the guard was leading the fighting duo across the snow-covered courtyard. The bold guy, Jo Young Pyo, was looking around with a mean look on his face, and his partner, Yuki Bok, didn't seem the least bit intimidated by the place either. That is, until Jo Young Pyo spots the figure in the window and is surprised by who he's seeing. The figure in the window remains still, staring down the two newcomers without moving a muscle. That piercing gaze made it clear he was not happy about their presence. Even so, Jo Young Pyo provokes him, calling the guy an idiot with a ridiculous look on his face. And to make it worse, the bald guy flips him the middle finger, showing a total lack of respect. After that warm welcome, the guards take them inside and order them to take off their clothes. Next, they receive the blue uniforms they'll have to wear during their stay in prison. Yukibok starts to undress, revealing a muscular body covered in tattoos. But his partner, Jo Young Pyo, thinks they should take a shower first. The guard then loses his patience and tells them to hurry up because time is short. And upon reaching the showers, they find out they only have 5 minutes to wash up. The guard yells at them to keep it down and says he's stepping out for a second. As he walks away, he thinks to himself that he needs to keep a close eye on these dangerous guys. But he barely turns his back before our hero, Hallyu, appears in the hallway. He then starts walking toward the bathroom to meet the newbies. And he enters the room while the duo is showering peacefully, completely unaware. Our protagonist stares down the newbies with a serious and determined look. And without a second thought, he walks over to the valve and shuts off the shower water. Suddenly, the water stops flowing, leaving the bathroom in complete silence. Yukibok gets angry and wonders what the heck just happened. His partner, Jo Young Pyo, also doesn't get why the water suddenly stopped. Then Hallyu appears, saying that scum like them don't even deserve a shower. The duo turns around and finally recognizes the guy from the window who was staring at them. They're surprised to see that it's the famous and feared Hallyu in the flesh. Jo Young Pyo gets ticked off and curses at him, saying he was the one who turned off the water. Our hero confirms it and opens his shirt, saying he's not going to waste water on them. The pair of fighters remain silent, just watching the redhead's attitude. Hallyu then stares them both down without fear and asks if they still want to take a shower. Yukibok lets out a sarcastic smile, finding the whole situation pretty amusing. Jo Young Pyo also grins and asks if he knows who he's messing with. Our boy replies that yes, he knows exactly who they are. He then clenches his fist and says they are people who have no humanity. And without warning, Hallyu lands a solid punch right in Yukibok's face. The blow is so powerful it makes the blonde guy spit blood and turn his head instantly. Jo Young Pyo is shocked by the scene and yells his partner's name, but it's too late and Yukibok falls to the floor, cursing out our protagonist. Jo Young Pyo is in shock because he never expected our hero to be so fast. Without giving him any time to react, our protagonist charges full speed at the blonde guy, and then he grabs Yukibok's head and slams it hard against the floor. The fighter screams in pain while spitting a mouthful of blood. But our guy doesn't stop and continues to beat the daylights out of him without an ounce of mercy. He lands one hit after another with incredible force. Jo Young Pyo gets desperate watching his partner get beaten like that. A scream of fury echoes throughout the bathroom as the beatdown continues. Yukibok is already completely wrecked on the floor, covered in blood. His partner watches the scene, unable to do anything to help his friend. The bald guy gets furious and curses at our protagonist for the thrashing he delivered. Hallyu then looks at him and asks if it's his turn now or if he can just leave. Jo Young Pyo ignores the taunt and asks how his friend is feeling. He tries to cheer his partner up, saying he just got his face a little swollen. Then he gets ready to fight, thinking our guy is just some amateur. and he promises that he's going to finish our hero off in a very painful way. Hallyu then provokes him, talking about the grandmother they cruelly attacked. He says she probably still can't rest in peace because of them. Jo-Yang Pyo loses it and tells our protagonist to shut his mouth right now. And with all his rage, he lunges forward and lands a direct punch on the redhead. But Jo-Yang Pyo doesn't just stand there. He retaliates with a hard punch to our protagonist. He continues the sequence of blows, landing a solid hit on our hero's shoulder. And to finish the combo, he even lands a powerful kick to the redhead's head. The fighter is shocked to see that he managed to withstand all 3 consecutive hits. Even while bleeding, Hallyu says he understands the guy's feelings and his urge to scream. Then, he promises that he's going to help him with that today, with a very sinister look in his eyes. The bald guy is confused by this talk and calls our protagonist an idiot. And without understanding a thing, he charges in again while Hallyu just defends himself. Jo-Yang Pyo grabs his hair and says it doesn't matter how strong he is, because at the end of the day, our boy is nothing but a big loser. Hallyu then stares at him and seems to question the professional fighter's skill. The bald guy gets angry and smashes a knee right into our hero's face. But to his surprise, the blow doesn't have the effect he was really hoping for. Jo-Yang Pyo is startled by his resilience and calls him a beast for taking so much punishment. Blood runs down our protagonist's face, but his gaze remains steady. Then Hallyu grabs the fighter's hands with incredible strength. The bald guy is frozen. Realizing the absurd force in our boy's grip, he lets out a laugh and asks if the redhead really wants to test his strength against him. Hallyu threatens him, saying that from now on, his hands will only be good for holding a spoon. Jo-Yang Pyo gives a confident smile and doubts he's capable of doing that. Hallyu then squeezes the fighter's hands with absurd force, and Jo-Yang Pyo screams in pain as his bones are crushed. The bald guy can't take the pain and screams in despair for it to end. He looks at his hand and realizes it's completely destroyed. Hallyu leaves the 2 of them on the floor and calls them crazy. But he's not done yet and calmly grabs Jo-Yang Pyo's foot. Then, our boy places the guy's foot on top of a bucket, and without a second thought, he stomps down hard, breaking everything right there. The fighter screams in agony and begs for his broken leg. Afterwards, Hallyu goes over to the blonde guy, Yukai Bok, who was already taken down, and he does the same thing to his other leg, breaking that one too. The 2 of them are now on the floor, screaming in pain, unable to move. Our hero then says they'll live the rest of their lives like this. The scene then shifts to a very large and fancy house at night. Inside this mansion, we see a very luxurious and elegant space. A woman is crying while talking to some people in the living room. She says she feels safe because the board of directors is very talented, because the chairman is in a coma and her son, Hallyu, is immature. She thanks them for their protection and support during the crisis. The directors just listen to everything with very serious expressions. The directors then bow their heads as a sign of respect for the family's situation. One of them tells the woman not to worry, as they will take good care of the company. Meanwhile, our hero's younger brother asks about their father's health condition, and we find out his condition is very serious, with little chance of improvement. The directors pretend to be very sorry about the news and offer their condolences. The woman then seizes the moment and asks CEO Null for a favor. She wants him to get our protagonist, Hallyu, out of the juvenile detention center as soon as possible. CEO No agrees and promises he will find a way to help the young man. After the conversation, the woman and her son say goodbye to the directors at the front door. CEO No bows respectfully and says he and his team are leaving. The woman says goodbye to him with a serious look and tells him to take care. The car then drives away, leaving the two of them standing in front of the mansion. Once inside the vehicle, CEO No calls his driver, Mr. Kim, over for a chat. He asks if the driver has ever seen a woman cry so hard yet have her legs tremble. Mr. Kim is confused and asks what the boss means by that. CEO No then recalls that he noticed her legs shaking while she was crying, and with that, he figures out that the woman is a huge gold digger and was faking it. Back at the mansion, the son asks why. She wants to get Hallyu out of there. With a smile, she reveals her plan to always keep her enemies close, and she tells her son to just trust her and follow her orders without question. After that, the woman dismisses the doctor and nurse to be alone with her husband. As soon as they leave, she reveals her true colors and curses at the bedridden old man. And with a cold look, she says she's tired of having to pretend to cry. The chairman seems to understand everything and becomes desperate, unable to move or speak. Then, the woman starts tying her husband's feet with a tight leather strap. She fastens the strap tightly to the bed, so there's no way he can get loose. With his feet tied down, the old man has no chance of escaping what's coming next. Suddenly, she raises the bed, leaving the poor guy hanging upside down. The chairman is left in that position, while the woman glares at him with contempt and disgust. She then starts cursing at the old man and complaining about his current condition, and she asks why he hasn't croaked yet, since he has no more reason to live. She screams that she can't stand to see him drooling anymore and tells him to just go away already. And she even says he doesn't need to suffer so much since he's completely incapacitated. The old man begins to cry silently as drool runs down his face. The woman notices the tears and is surprised to see he's crying again. Then she understands that he can hear everything and calls him disgusting for it. The scene then returns to the juvenile detention center where our protagonist, Hallyu, is imprisoned. He is sitting in his solitary cell with a lost and thoughtful look in his eyes. Suddenly, our hero starts to cry and says that this world is a living hell. And as he walks down the hall, he thinks that he's suffering in this inferno. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps is heard in the silent prison corridor. One of the guards approaches our protagonist's cell and unlocks it. He then opens the door and tells Hallyu to follow him out of that place. With a shout, the guard announces that our hero is being released from the detention center. Our guy is completely shocked and can't believe the news he just heard. As he walks with the guard, the other prisoners go wild over the news. They start shouting and celebrating our hero's departure from that place. And they even say they respect him a lot and hope to see him on the outside one day. The guard gets annoyed with the commotion and bangs on the bars, telling everyone to shut up. He then turns to our protagonist and comments on his fame within the prison. But Hallyu asks what happened to the fighters, Yu Ki-bok and Jo Young Pyo. The guard responds with a single word that makes the atmosphere very heavy: gone. Our guy is in shock to learn the fate of the duo he beat up. The guard explains that they jumped from the hospital roof a week after the fight. Our hero doesn't believe the story and says they would have preferred to live, even if it was in prison. The guard then asks if he thinks someone took them out and who the culprit might be. Hallyu denies it and says it wasn't him as he signs his release papers. He says that the rule of the world is that in order to protect someone, at that moment, he gets back the clothes he was wearing when he was arrested. You have to hurt someone else, and then he gets ready to leave. The guard is shocked by the answer and Hallyu says it was the world that knocked them out. He then throws away his prisoner uniform, revealing the tattoo on his back. The guard thinks that the carp tattoo looks like it's moving, and that Hallyu is only 18 years old. Now in his own clothes, our hero walks down the corridor, ready to finally leave. He then passes through the prison gates, which open to his long-awaited freedom. Our protagonist steps outside, feeling the firm ground under his feet again. Right after, a yellow motorcycle approaches, its headlights shining brightly in the darkness. Our guy stares at the vehicle with a serious look, waiting to see who's there. Suddenly, a guy and a girl show up on two motorcycles to pick up our hero. He gives a little smirk upon seeing his friends finally arriving for the rescue. The girl with orange hair is named Park Jae-in, and she looks pretty confident on her bike. She revs her red motorcycle as she follows her friend down the dark road. They then meet up in a more secluded spot so they can talk in private. Park Jae-in says it's freezing and offers a fur coat to our boy. She then gets closer and places the warm coat over his shoulders. His friend, named Bape, gives a big hug to our protagonist who just got out. He asks where the guys from Nara High are, because they're at a disadvantage. Bape explains that 3 guys from that school are controlling the whole territory, and that's why our hero's return was perfectly timed to sort out this mess. Park Jae-in smiles and says that now that he's back, things are going to get better. Our protagonist tells his friend Bape not to worry, because he'll handle everything. The scene then takes us to an abandoned construction site where a huge brawl is going down. From a distance, you can hear the sounds of the fight, with a lot of people getting beaten up badly. And soon we see a guy in a suit get thrown to the ground hard, with no chance to fight back. Another guy then approaches the fallen man and asks where this Bape is. Apparently, the Gedo High gang is getting a beatdown from the Nara High crew. One of the Nara guys is annoyed because Bape still hasn't shown up for the fight. All beaten up, he says he's going to wreck everyone until the coward finally appears. Another gang member mocks a guy on the ground, asking if Bape is scared. A buddy then explains that Bape fell in love, and his girlfriend doesn't like fighting, but the guy on the ground guarantees that he will definitely show up to fight today. Smiling through his bloody face, he says that the real problem is actually something else, because along with his friend, our protagonist Hallyu is also on his way here. The Nara guys are shocked by the news and can't believe he's actually coming. The fallen kid then reveals that today is our hero's parole day. The gang leader's expression changes instantly, and he seems to get very worried. The other members also get scared, just thinking about our boy's arrival. The guy on the ground says that now they're going to have to swallow their pride and get ready. Suddenly, someone tells him to shut up, and the atmosphere in the place gets even more tense. The Nara leader then starts beating him, saying he's going to love finishing off Hallyu. The Nara leader continues to beat up the guy, who screams in pain on the ground. He then turns to his henchmen, Kitchen and Young Ho, and asks if they're ready. Kitchen responds with a confident look, saying he's more than ready to end this, and Young Ho also seems pretty convinced, saying he'll defeat the enemy easily. But suddenly, the sound of 2 motorcycles echoes through the warehouse, interrupting their conversation. The Gedo High guys who were getting beaten look up in surprise toward the entrance. With a shout of relief, they announce that reinforcements have finally arrived to save them. Then Hallyu and his friend Bape enter the place on their motorcycles, along with Park Jae-in. The Nara leader stares at the trio's arrival with a serious and unhappy expression. His 2 main henchmen also fall silent, watching the scene unfold. Everyone from the Nara gang is shocked, and one of them even lets out a curse in surprise. They can't believe that our hero, Hallyu, actually showed up for the fight. Our protagonist's crew stops in front of their enemies, facing all of them down. Our boy gets off his bike and assesses the situation with a cold, calculating look. The Nara leader stares back at him, and a tense atmosphere takes over the place. Park Jae-in then points and says that those are the three most famous guys from Nara High. Their leader lets out a laugh and challenges our hero to show if he's as good as they say. Ba-pei makes fun of them, saying they must have already peed their pants from fear. Our protagonist then looks at the enemy gang and tells everyone to kneel, and then he warns them that he'll think about forgiving them for starting a fight without his permission. But our hero adds that they need to crawl and beg for forgiveness. The leader, Choi Kiho, is shocked by our protagonist's audacity. Kitchen next to him is also startled by our boy's insane charisma, and even the big eye Young-ho feels his heart tremble with fear. Because of this, Choi Kiho tries to assert himself and yells at our hero to stop talking nonsense. He even asks if our protagonist thinks they're just a bunch of nobodies. With a cold, direct stare, our boy replies that yes, that's exactly what he thinks, and without giving him time to react, Hallyu lands a knee right in the leader's stomach. The blow is so strong that the guy spits blood and is left breathless on the spot. Our hero then throws him to the ground and, with a serious look, calls for the next one. One of the henchmen gets furious seeing his boss on the ground and curses at our protagonist. Kitchen then lunges forward, trying to land a punch on our boy, but Hallyu easily dodges and breaks the guy's arm without any mercy. He twists the enemy's arm with absurd strength, leaving the guy in despair. Kitchen screams in pain as our hero stares him down with a very serious look. He then prepares to finish the job once and for all, and lands a powerful punch on the henchman's back, who was already done for. Now, only Young-ho is left standing while the other two are on the ground in agony. Our protagonist smiles and says that for guys with backup, they put up a bit of a fight. Young-ho gets furious at the taunt and prepares to fight as well. And without hesitation, our hero lands a solid punch right on Young-ho's chin. He then holds onto the big guy, who is shocked by our protagonist's strength. Young-ho can't believe what just happened to him. Then our boy moves fast and grabs him in a very strange hold. He lifts the guy up and, with all his might, slams his back onto his knee. The brute screams in pain, feeling his spine snap in half. The other gang members are stunned by the brutal scene they just witnessed, and they realize that in less than 30 seconds, all three leaders were defeated. But Pei shows up laughing and asks why he wastes his time with trash like them. He then says he's in love and just wants to see a more beautiful world now. But our hero gets serious and asks about the regional alliance situation. Bai Pei's expression also changes, and he says things aren't that simple. He explains that all the schools in the region have united and become stronger. Our protagonist wonders how that happened since they were all a bunch of losers. His friend then reveals that there's now a national level guy involved, and this guy's name is Hai Ryung, and he's the one who has taken full control. He dominates several alliances and turns everyone into his slaves. Our boy then asks why they can't just take him down. Ba-pei then asks if he knows who the boss behind a guy Ryung is. Our hero is confused, not understanding who this powerful person could be. Bai-pei reveals that the big boss behind everything is some guy named Go-ho. He's from Busan Wusu High and is considered the strongest in the entire country. That's why his friend warns our hero to be careful about his moves. Our protagonist already understands that sooner or later, he'll have to fight him, but for now, he decides he's going to take down Hagai Ryong first. Except Bapei makes a sour face and says he's sitting this fight out. Our boy is confused and asks why he doesn't want to fight anymore. And in a dramatic fashion, he says he's in love and only wants to see good things. Our hero gets annoyed and asks who the heck he's dating now. He then puts his friend in a chokehold and says there's no excuse for not fighting. Just then, Park Jae-in arrives and announces that the cleanup here is done. Our protagonist lets go of his friend and congratulates the girl on a job well done. She then invites him to a party to celebrate his release from juvie, but our boy declines because he needs to go home to see his father. With a smile, he promises they can celebrate some other time. The girl then nods in agreement and gives him a very kind smile. Even so, she seems a little sad about our protagonist's refusal, so the friends say their goodbyes and agree to meet at school the next day. On his motorcycle, our hero thinks about his father, his stepmother, and his brother. The scene then cuts to the big city at night, with all the lights on. In a fancy building, we see a muscular guy training hard. He's in a VIP room at Nara Technical High, which is pretty strange. Then a henchman arrives to report on the celebrities he sent to fight, and he reports that all three were defeated as soon as our hero, Hallyu, showed up. The pink-haired guy lets out a laugh and says they went down in less than 30 seconds. He mocks them, saying they're nothing but a bunch of weak nobodies. The henchman then asks what he should do about Hai Raiwon, and he finds out that he's already on standby at a motel with other upperclassmen. The boss then points his finger and tells him to deliver a very important message. He wants Haji Raiwon to get this message right now, without delay. The order is to attack Bapei the next day, with as many guys as he wants to bring, because the plan is to capture him to break one of our protagonist's wings. The henchman understands the message and prepares to leave and carry out the orders. Before leaving, he bows respectfully and wishes his boss a good rest. As soon as the door closes, the pink-haired guy gets a sinister look in his eyes. He then turns and says our hero's name, Hallyu, with a smile on his face, and he promises that he's going to have a lot of fun with him now that he's back. The scene then cuts to a luxurious mansion at night, brightly lit. Our protagonist arrives home on his red motorcycle and parks out front. His stepmother and brother were already waiting for him at the door with very fake smiles. The stepmother greets him with a fake smile, saying he must be tired, but Hallyu ignores her and coldly asks where his father is. She replies that he's in his room, and our boy walks past her. On the inside, the woman curses him and flashes a very wicked smile. His brother also watches everything with a very sinister look. Entering the room, our hero finds his father lying down and drooling. He then approaches the bed with a worried expression. Our boy tells him he's finally out, but the old man doesn't react, so he bows his head and apologizes for not being by his side. The old man seems to have a small reaction upon hearing his son's voice, and suddenly he opens his eyes, surprising our protagonist. With difficulty, the father tries to say something, and Hallyu takes his hand. Our hero squeezes his father's hand tightly, trying to offer support. The old man then cries and manages to tell him to get out of there quickly. Our boy also cries as he understands his father's warning. Then a flashback begins to when he was in elementary school. Back then, he was kidnapped and thrown into a van. The guys threatened him with a knife, telling him to stay quiet. Right after, they called our protagonist's father, and they demanded a ransom for his life, leaving the father furious. Our hero's father then explodes with rage and screams at the kidnappers. Meanwhile, his stepmother and younger brother just watch the scene. He threatens to hunt down the guys of families if they touch a single hair on his son's head, and he even gives them a 3-day deadline to return him, or they will all perish. The kidnappers are shocked by his reaction and don't know what to do. Even so, one of them tries his luck and asks for a ransom of 1 billion. The boy's father gets even more furious with the absurd amount demanded, so he curses out the criminals and refuses to pay any amount. Instead, he demands to speak with his son immediately on the phone. The guys get annoyed but eventually give in and hand the phone to the boy. Our protagonist then hears his father's voice for the first time. The father then explains that they will meet their end either way because they saw the criminals' faces. Then, he makes a promise to our boy, who is listening to everything. If he is taken out, his father will avenge his passing in a very terrible way. The kidnapper, who overhears the conversation, is completely shocked by the coldness. The other 2 criminals are also frightened by the threat from the boy's father. Our protagonist finds the whole thing very strange but feels safe, and even in that dangerous situation, he felt protected by his father's words, so he accepts his fate and says goodbye to his father over the phone. The kidnapper then screams in desperation and asks if he's just going to let his son be taken out. With chilling coldness, our hero's father tells the guys to go ahead, and he even promises that he will do the exact same thing to their families. The kidnappers then panic, realizing the situation has spun out of their control. One of them gets angry and decides to finish the boy off once and for all, but his partner stops him, saying the boy's father is a dangerous man. The third one agrees and says if they take out the kid, they and their families will all meet their end. One of the guys then curses out some woman who thought the plan would be too easy. Our protagonist overhears the conversation and realizes someone else is involved in this. After 3 months with no success, the criminals finally release him at his front door. He then sees his family running towards him to welcome him back. At that moment, the boy feels something very strange and becomes on high alert. His stepmother hugs him tightly, asking how much he must have suffered in captivity, and with his face pressed against her, a bad memory comes flooding back to his mind. It was the same cheap and disgusting perfume he had smelled on the kidnappers. He remembers that his father would never buy such a terrible perfume for his wife. Then our hero understands that this is the natural scent of that evil woman. He associates the smell with trash, sewage, and rotten things, revealing her true nature. The boy is terrified as he finally understands who was behind everything. And just like that, he discovers the true identity of his gold-digging stepmother. A month later, they are found lifeless in the middle of the mountains. The father then says he will turn him into a strong man to protect himself. The stepmother pretends to be concerned, but the old man ignores her little act. He already had a gut feeling that he couldn't trust that woman at all. That's why our hero was sent to the countryside for 3 years to train. Back in the present, we see that the situation in the mansion is very tense. The stepmother approaches her husband's room, cursing our protagonist. She peeks through the door to see what the two are planning in there, and she is completely shocked by the scene she finds in the room. Our boy holds his father's hand and tells him not to worry anymore. Then he hugs him and promises that he will protect him from all evil. The old man is speechless from the hug and his son's promise. He didn't expect to see his boy so determined and strong all of a sudden. From the doorway, the stepmother sees a malicious aura coming from our protagonist, and filled with hatred, She decides she needs to get rid of our hero as soon as possible. The scene then shifts to a city with very simple buildings and houses, and we're introduced to Jido Technical High School, where our protagonist studies. The place looks old and run down, but it's still imposing. Three guys from another school look at the building with contempt and disgust. Their leader is Haji Ryong, who is observing the movement routes of the place. His two henchmen also stare at the school, ready for the invasion. Haji Ryong explains that they need to scout the battlefield to plan the fight. One of the henchmen thinks it's overkill since the target is just our hero's friend, but the leader asserts that Ba Pei is much stronger than they imagine, and he says that not even the three of them together could guarantee a victory against him. The henchman gets annoyed and tells the boss to stop talking nonsense in front of him, but Haji Ryong insists that he is a hidden and very powerful force. The first henchman is shocked by the revelation about the guy's strength, and the second one is also startled to learn that their target isn't just some random dude. The leader then reveals a secret that nobody knew about our hero's friend. Meanwhile, Ba Pei is walking calmly down the street, listening to his music. Turns out, he has never lost a single fight in his entire life to this day. That's why he walks around so relaxed and happy. Go lucky, without a care in the world. He continues on his way, enjoying the sun and the music in his ears, until suddenly, he stops and realizes that something isn't quite right. From the rooftop, Haji Ryong and his henchmen decide to come down to start the attack, but Pei notices the movement and sees that the door to the place has been locked. The double metal door is now shut, blocking anyone from passing through. So he grabs a piece of wood that was lying on the ground nearby, and he uses it to lock the door from the outside, trapping the enemies inside. The gang tries to get out but discovers that someone has locked them in, and now they're trapped outside. But Pei continues on his way while listening to the desperate screams. But the leader, Haji Ryong, tells his henchmen to back away from the metal door, and with a powerful kick, he simply shatters the door into several pieces. Ba Pei is startled by the noise and realizes the guys managed to escape. He then turns around with a serious look and prepares for the inevitable fight. The enemy gang finally finds him and already knows he was the one who locked them in. They then begin to close in, surrounding our protagonist's friend. The two henchmen shout and tell Ba Pei to stay right where he is. He then takes a deep breath and seems really annoyed with the situation he's gotten himself into, and he shouts that he already told them his fighting business closed for a while. But the trio ignores him and surrounds him, leaving Ba Pei with no escape route. Haji Ryong then says he can help him get out of this without having to fight. Ba Pei is suspicious and asks how he plans on doing something like that. The gang leader then takes a step forward and positions himself in front of him, and he humiliates him by telling him to crawl between his legs to leave. The henchmen laugh, thinking their boss's idea is absolutely brilliant. Haji Ryong even tells the two of them to record the scene to humiliate him even more. Ba Pei gets furious and says the situation is going to be very entertaining from now on. A flashback then reveals that he promised his girlfriend he wouldn't fight anymore, and with a smile, he seals the deal so he can finally be with the girl. The girlfriend then asks him to promise that he will never fight again in his life. Ba Pei hesitates and asks for how long he would have to keep that promise. She then says the promise is for life, and only then will she go out with him. But she warns that she'll be watching him for a month or two, and he accepts the deal. Back in the present, he remembers the promise and is caught in a cruel dilemma. Haji Ryong rushes him with a mocking smile eager to see the humiliation. So Pei decides he will swallow his pride and do it for his love. He agrees to pass under the guy's leads to get it over with. One of the henchmen excitedly pulls out his phone to film the bizarre scene. But Pei cries in shame and tells himself that it will all be over in an instant. Suddenly, a voice shouts from a distance, calling him a psycho and a crazy person. Hagai Ryung is confused, not understanding who is yelling at them. His henchmen also wonder who this person is that just appeared out of nowhere, and to everyone's surprise, it was Park Jae-in, who is cursing him out for his actions.